Welcome back to the Departure Lounge. Today, I'm joined by Brandon Carroll, partner at RK Partners. They focus on tax incentives, real estate, energy efficiency, and innovations. Brandon brings more than 15 years of experience across business development, strategic partnerships, and client support roles. He's worked with organizations of all sizes to help them understand, access, and benefit from various incentive programs. His background spans technology, consulting, and now specialized tax incentive work, all rooted in consistent passion for building relationships and supporting clients and connecting people to the right opportunities. Brandon, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Stephen.
Tell us a bit more about your background and what led you into the role that you're in now.
Sure. My background, believe it or not, lies within music production. Many folks don't know that because they've known me for a while, being in the financial incentive space. But I went to school for music production, recording technology, and spent the first part of my career doing a lot of composing for TV commercials and different other types of formats. And then I branched into more media technology sales, business development for the very companies where I used those devices and software in my everyday work. And then I always had a fascination for how things worked and the engineering behind it and the technology. I felt like that could help me explain things better when I'm going through a sales or solution process. And so that was the common thread that led me into research tax credits, which is kind of how I entered the space. I enjoy talking to founders and CTOs and other businesses and startups or all shapes and sizes about their technology, about their products, how they're built. And I feel like that I could share that passion with what they were doing. And then after a while of doing that, we kind of grew into different energy incentives. There's all different types of clean energy and efficiency incentives for different types of energy systems and residential and commercial buildings. So I helped grow that service line at one firm, and now I'm at my current firm to help grow that service line as well. We also do additional research, tax incentives. That's our core business, and so that's the funny journey that led me to where I am.
So yeah, that's super interesting. Now you're ending up at so you go from music now to a tax company. It's a very it sounds like a rich background of diversity, really. Um, what do you guys do at RK Partners, and what would you like the viewers to know about your company?
RK Partners is a U.S. tax incentive consulting firm. We focus on the niche research and development tax credit, which is Section 41 of the tax code. That's our core business. And I came on a few months ago to expand that business into an energy incentive service line. We're starting that journey with 179D, which is a commercial building energy efficient tax deduction for commercial buildings. And it's there to reduce the cost of new builds or renovations that used certain energy efficient types of upgrades to reduce the cost of energy consumption that a building has. And so we're comprised of tax attorneys from Big Four, CPAs from Big Four, ex-IRS agents, all different types of really high quality consultants.
Mhm.
And on the other side, it's more business development and other types of sales consultants. And so we have a physical presence in New York City, and then we have some remote folks around the country.
Okay. What appealed to you most about joining RK Partners recently?
I think the founder Mark has put together a really rock star team.
Mhm.
I also was attracted to his passion and charisma and his drive. The company's on a track to do really, really good things. Their numbers as a business are good too, for the especially for the short amount of time they've been around. I mean, been around for 3 or 4 years, and it's impressive. The revenue, um, no debt, profitability, like all the good things that a startup should have, and then also the direction. And so we aligned a lot on that, and it seemed like a really good time to um, step up in my career into a partner position and also be a part of um, kind of the beginnings of what's to be a lot bigger.
Yeah, that's what everyone wants to be a part of a growing company, right?
Absolutely.
Your current work centers on helping real estate owners and businesses better understand and access available incentive programs. When clients come to you, what are they usually looking for or trying to solve?
That's a good question. A lot of times, so there's two big buckets I focus on. One is I would call them real estate professionals.
Hmm.
Those would be people in real estate development, groups that own, develop, and operate different types of commercial building facilities. The other group or bucket I look at are corporate. And so these would be retail, other types of companies that happen to own their office buildings, although real estate is not their core business. And so a lot of folks will come to me looking at whether they're doing a new build or a lot of times it's renovations and they might be doing an HVAC upgrade or a new building facade and they're wondering what else is there that they can use to offset the costs of those types of renovations. They're not cheap. If you're doing a whole new HVAC system on a 500,000 square foot office building, that's it's multi-million-dollar
Yeah,
purchase. And so a lot of times there are local rebates and incentives through utility providers or state or cities. And a lot of times they'll pursue those, but then they'll forget about the federal programs. And
yeah,
so half of my work is to educate folks what they know, what they don't know, and then through various referral networks or just general networking and other business relationships, people will come to me knowing that there might be something there, but they need a little bit of education on how it works.
yeah.
The big problem I solve really is just reducing the cost of these projects,
Okay.
and it's through tax savings that the cost is reduced.
Yeah.
So um, yeah, in a nutshell.
So, do you have to get, are you guys getting really creative um, with them in terms of like guiding the direction of their development projects based on the incentives that they're trying to take advantage of?
Sometimes we will. I think the biggest thing we help people demystify is how they pay for it.
Okay.
There's been a so 179D historically has been around for about 20 years. It's been on the chopping block before, but it always gets extended and it was made permanent. And now the latest big beautiful bill has actually put a sunset date to it. Next July, you have to have started your project by then
Okay.
to be eligible. Now, if history repeats itself, we might see it get extended. Maybe it goes away and comes back really quick. Um, but because it's a tax deduction, people can go back as many years as they want. And so I think that's the biggest eye opener for a lot of people is they think it's like something they need to pursue moving forward. But in actuality, all the qualified work they've done in the last 5 years, they can capture it all. You can go back in time, add additional deductions that you didn't take on those tax returns, and compile all that and move it forward to present year to reduce your tax bill. So
Okay.
that's like a very appetizing um, thing for people to learn about because then it's like, all right, well, geez, if that's the case, like I have these 10 buildings that we did a ton of work on, like, what can you help me? And so then I'll work with them to do some analysis on which qualifies and not. And so sometimes like getting ahead of it when they're about to do a renovation, we can help them understand, if you're going to get a reduction in cost, then that might change your budgetary constraints, right?
Yeah.
If I want to invest a little bit more into this HVAC system that might last longer or is more energy efficient, well, maybe now that's the pocket of money that I didn't have before that I can use to afford a better system. And so there are things like that people want to consider. There's also this idea of prevailing wage and apprenticeship, which is this rule that's littered throughout a lot of different legislation, both state and federal, where it's a 5x multiplier on a lot of these incentives. So that's something they can look at too. Do I want to, because if they pay prevailing wage, which typically is a little bit more than a your regular labor and trades kind of cost, you get a 5x multiplier. And so instead of $1 per square foot, which by the way, this is all per square foot exercise. That's how you determine the value of this.
Okay.
And it goes from $1 per square foot to five. And so that's something that it can help them figure out, like, is it worth pay, what's the cost benefit analysis on paying more for the labor, and is that worth the extra 5x multiplier? To reiterate, people can use and think about these incentives as they're approaching a renovation or a new build. Um, and then so they can, like I mentioned, they can look at prevailing wage and whether paying more for the labor is worth the 5x benefit. They can also look at just as a way to maybe they can afford a more expensive system because of the tax savings, because of the utilizing the incentive. So that would be a way to use this to um, get ahead of what you're doing. And then all the other times that I was talking about before is looking at what you've done in the past where you might have overlooked it. You can go back and correct that.
Okay. Is your job is a part of your job staying on top of all these programs, and how often are these programs changing that you need to study new legislation and figure out how that can apply to your clients?
Yeah, they shift a lot. It's a little bit political dependent. You know, um, Depending on who's in office, they might shift one program to or change it around or introduce a new one. They never go away. They always just change. And so, yes, it is my job to stay on top of it because people want to know how it works and how it applies to their business. And so I want to make sure I can give them accurate information and be there to make sure that they are making the best informed decision. So, just like I said before, like 179D was supposed to be permanent, and all of a sudden it just appeared out of nowhere in one of the revisions of the big beautiful bill proposals, and it just got signed into law. So that's it's unfortunate, but you have to be. And now people are like, do I have time? And so there's different rules that the IRS has set forth on what classifies as start construction. It's easy to say, but what does that mean technically? And so that's something that I can help people walk through and can help them decide if they want to move the goalpost to start a project sooner or not.
Yeah, okay. It sounds like you've spent like years working with clients in many different contexts. Do you have any advice on what helps build trust and create a smooth experience for these clients when, especially when you're going through complex subjects like these?
Sure. So I think one of the things that people look for when they want guidance here is they want someone who's honest with them. That's first and foremost. And I have no problem telling people that this is not a good fit, or to hold off, or even if there's a benefit, is it enough? Is the juice worth the squeeze? Um, I think it's refreshing for folks to hear someone who's presumably, at the end of the day in sales or business development, say that this isn't a good fit. Because at the end of the day, like I'm trying to solve a problem, and if it's not solving it all the way, or if I know it's not going to work for them, there's no point in still trying to make it happen. It's just going to be a bad experience for everyone. And so, honesty is a big thing, and then also making sure that you explain to them what the technical process is. And that helps them feel confident that you are experienced and you have the skill sets to complete the job. You know, the IRS requires building owners to outsource this work to a third party licensed professional engineer. And to be a PE is the same thing as, getting your law degree or passing the bar. So you can go to engineering school, but to be a licensed PE, you actually have to pass an exam that requires, I think, like 4 years of work in the field, and then it's like there's a whole part of the exam, and so only then do you become a licensed professional engineer. And so those folks have to perform a field inspection. They have to do a physical inspection of the building, And then we also have to do an energy modeling using IRS approved software. So those aren't just things that anyone can just pick up and do. And walking people through how that works and the teams that we use to do them and instills confidence. And then at the very end of everything, after we deliver, the IRS has 3 years to ask you questions about your tax returns, personal and business. And they can ask you anything about them. And if you file for an incentive or for a credit, they can ask you about that too. And so when they ask you about it, you want to be sure that you can back it up and that you can substantiate it and that you have someone in your corner, not just yourself. And so that's what we include on all of our engagements is that everything includes audit defense. So that's why we have tax attorneys that have experience um, going up against the IRS and explaining. And sometimes it's really easy. They might just be wanting to dig in a little deeper. How did you arrive at your number? You show them how you did it. You show them your documents, and they say thank you very much, and everyone's goes on their way. If you have to defend it, you want to make sure that you have the right folks in your corner. So that is another layer of just building the trust and the confidence on why someone kind of would choose to work with us.
Yeah. Have you guys ever had to work through any of those audits that were maybe you have a story about one that was tough and that you guys kind of prevailed through?
I don't have any stories at at this firm I'm at because we're growing the business. I've got stories
Hmm.
from the past. The nice thing about 179D is that they usually go to the engineer that did the work. And so like if the engineer can back it up and says that it's legit, then they will usually side with that person because they're kind of the expert. Um, and so that usually is a good thing for 179D. I mean, if we question anything's eligibility, we just won't do it. Because if we're going to provide audit defense, we want to go forward with every claim, assuming there'll be an audit, so that if there is, it's like there's really nothing to hide. This is how we got to our number. So um, I will say our tax attorney, our lead compliance officer, has a 55-0 track record going up against the IRS for audits, and so that's something we tout when it comes up, just to make people feel a little more comfortable that hey, like we've been around the block here and we don't have a loss. So that's usually gives them makes them feel good.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. At your current company now, you said that they've been around for 3 or 4 years, was that right?
Yep.
What do you see for the future of RK Partners and what are you guys looking forward to and things of that nature?
So I think that I think that this industry is one of those industries, and we're starting to see a little bit happen now, but a lot of it's still stuck in the old school past of the way that we deliver, the way that we help people leverage certain tools and things like that. And so I think that we have an opportunity to shift our offering a little bit, and it's easy. Even though that we're niche and we have there's these niche tax incentives, there are other players in the space that do this work. And when you compare them all, it's easy to kind of get stuck in this mindset that you're a commodity. And I think what we have an opportunity is to do is to break that mold and step outside of that commodity thinking. Instead of apples and apples, really do some fun things to our offering to make someone see it in a totally different light. Like, yeah, we do 179D, but there's all these other things that we can add on to it to really be like a partner through someone's entire career journey, the entire company's journey, so that we're not just helping them with this one incentive, but there's other little things that we're tacking on that can be more advisory type of work. Those are the types of solutions that I want to work towards, so that
Mhm.
they don't just see us as a one-trick pony, and not even them
Yeah.
seeing us, but that's that we do more than that. And that can be with software, it can be with technology, it can be using certain AI tools to help make sure that they're always like ahead of the puck. So that's kind of where I see it going. And we've got a good crew here. They're young, they're ambitious, and I think that there's a lot of really exciting things in the pipeline. So that even if 179D dries up in the next few years, they'll always, by that time we will have added to different types of energy incentives that people can look at. And there's federal, there's state, there's local, and so there's a whole different sea of incentives, and there's ways to help people leverage those. And I think that that our offering can be improved and always advanced to something that people feel has just a totally different type of value than all the other things that seem similar.
Yeah. Okay. So you guys plan to you're getting people in the door now, and you're planning to basically expand your offerings as you bring these people in to kind of continue providing services for them over
Yeah,
time.
just finding the other little nuances that are painful for them that people don't think about, and doing the work up front to maybe make that pain go away a little bit, and then tacking that on to the core offering is just like another way to make it just a more heightened, well-rounded experience where you're doing really thoughtful things um, to really help them. Whether it's speed. There's always a player in the space that's the quickest at everything, and if that's what someone wants, then that's what they go for. And then there's other triggers and things that we can look at, but we do want to help with all the little things that are connected when it comes to not just qualifying or claiming 179D, but then everything else down the road as far as like planning for it and um, drawing different correlations and leaning on some data that people might not be using today. And so I think that there's a lot of room to bring it kind of up to speed and into the future, so that it's more than just like we'll help you do this tax claim and see you later. We do want that customer journey and that relationship to grow and prosper.
Yeah. Okay. So it's kind of almost becoming more of a consultant to them rather than just a one stop.
Definitely. Yeah, we want to do that and help them focus on their business as much as they can and trust us
Yeah.
to do the different types of things we do. And I
Mhm.
think a lot of the ways that people do that is just by just being like relentless about talking with your clients after
Mhm.
you've done your work and trying to uncover every little thing that if it wasn't a 10, then why wasn't it a 10? And like figure out every little thing that you could have done to make it an 11. And if you have ideas about things, like get their feedback, because ultimately you're trying to help them. And so they've got
Right.
all the info that you need, and sometimes they'll call out something that you didn't even think of. And so I think it's really important to reflect and talk to them and understand kind of where you're sitting.
Yeah, definitely. Another thing I want to ask you about incentive programs again is as these kind of expand and these things change over time, what do you think businesses should be doing just to make sure they're not leaving any opportunities on the table?
That's a good question. I mean, I think innovation and energy are and I guess I would say social impact. Those are like three big things that governments try to incentivize. Those are kind of three big pillars. And um, I think just understanding the landscape for the U.S. and then even broader into the world for international companies is something that's important. Um, so I think that companies are going to always have to. I mean, obviously it depends on the space that they're in, right? A data center has a different need than a software company or a company that is a printing service or something like that. They all have different requirements. Um, but obviously we're in an AI boom, so I think it's going to be very shocking, how the next 5, 10 years unfold. and where the mindless automations get picked up, and we can really put our heads more to critical thinking. I do think that, there is all businesses want to leverage it somehow. And
Yeah.
so they're either looking for someone to help them figure out how, or they've got a tech team that's already kind of leveraging certain tools or whatever. But that's a big part of what everyone's trying to figure out is like, how do I use AI, whether, to drive sales, to do better delivery, to do better customer experience. And so I think it's kind of, no one really has a crystal ball on where we're going to be,
Right.
and how powerful it will be. I do know that early adopters are going to be, it seems like those are going to be folks that are in a better position. Um, and you should have some skill sets around prompt engineering and um, how to kind of make it work for your business, and using it to plan and using it to, like I said, automate just simple tasks, mundane tasks that are taking up your time, but they're not actually um, adding to the vision and the hard work that you want to put in for the business.
Right. Right. Are you guys utilizing that at RK Partners at all, or are you helping clients with that stuff?
We are internally a little bit, and then there's some things that there's some ideas and plans we have for the future that we'll definitely be using to help our clients. So we deal with a lot of it on the research tax credit type of world. Any software company is a great fit for a research tax credit, and so AI falls in tune with that software.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting how it impacts the hardware space. I mean, I know people talk about these robots, and Tesla has Optimus and things like that, and
Mm.
but yeah, when I hear AI, I think about research tax credits all the time because those are good qualified things. But um, it's funny though because it does kind of bring you back into the real estate world, because like the AI, these large language models and like all these AI sets, like they can't work without a massive data center with huge
Yeah.
tons of NVIDIA and AMD CPUs running at all different types of speeds. And those data centers require a ton of energy, more than any other building in the world. And so,
Yeah.
like, that is a massive problem to solve. Um, you
Mhm.
know, the demand of today is too much for a grid to support. And so
Yeah.
it'd be interesting to see how it all unfolds, right? Because we're talking about AI and the power of AI, but like it needs like real physical
And-
stuff to run on.
Yeah.
And that
Yeah.
physical
Well,
stuff needs power.
that's probably going to be good for your business
I
then.
think
More
so.
clients.
Yeah, yeah. 179D is great for data centers, and data centers just doesn't they don't just need 179D. I mean, they are looking at all different types of energy. It's hard, right? Because it's like they want to be efficient, but they also just need more energy. So some systems that are available are not as efficient, unfortunately, but it generates the power required for the building to operate. But you see some data centers will have like a big solar farm next door, so that they don't have to lean on the grid completely. They've got a lot of battery storage. The cooling technology is hard at work, and so everyone's trying to attack those buildings at different angles to see what they can do on drawing less power or generating more of its own power.
Yeah. Would you say that real estate clients are the core at RK, or your most popular clients, or what would you say is the most
For
popular
my
type
line
of
of
client?
work, they are. For my line of work, I focus on commercial real estate. 179D apply. It's a commercial real estate, commercial building tax deduction. It does apply to residential and multifamily. That's 4 stories or higher.
Okay.
So it can touch that. But when it comes to R&D, I mean that's a very broad term, and that's kind of
Yeah.
what RK was built off of. And so now that we're doing more real estate, um, it's growing into a bigger business. We still have a big mountain to climb. But what I'm finding so far is that there's so much work to do. And it kind of goes back to what I was saying before is I'll meet with these big groups, and they will learn that there's this incentive that you can go back and grab, and it's for all these renovations that they thought they grabbed all of the incentives for, but they missed this one. And it's a theme that I keep seeing across not just real estate professionals, but also corporations that own the real estate. Um, you have facility managers that is their job to keep the facility up and running. What systems can they upgrade to draw less electricity? Um, and that's around the clock activity. If you have 25, 50, 100, 1,000 buildings across the US, that's a massive effort.
Yeah.
So, and because it's a tax incentive, there's two groups of people. You have your facility people, and then you have your tax team, and they are very siloed. They don't have stand-up meetings every week. Like those people don't even know each other. So half of my challenge, or all of my challenge in my job, is to educate those parties and connect them so that they can realize the savings. And I was talking with a group last year who had like they had hundreds of buildings across the U.S., but at least 50 or 60 of them had undergone qualified upgrades. They didn't do 179D. It was like a $20 million tax deduction just sitting on the table, which equates to, 6 million potentially off their tax bill, which is like multiple renovations for other buildings. And that's really how you drive it home for the tax team, because sometimes it's a multi-billion-dollar company, and so $1 million is like a rounding error for them. So how do you actually give it value? Is you have to find a home for it. You have to be like, yeah, I know it's not a lot to you guys, but Joe over here is trying to upgrade one of your HVAC systems, and he could use that $1 million versus pulling from capital budget, and that helps him out. So when you work together, cross pollinate, um, I think you have a more efficient business, and so that's part of the challenge that I'm up against. But just based on what I'm seeing, there's so many scenarios where it's like if we look back 5 years, you have a ton of work that qualifies. It's just finding the people and connecting the dots.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense. So, coming towards the end of the podcast, I have a question I usually ask all the guests, and it's if you had a magic wand that you could wave over your job, your business, what would you solve with that magic wand in your business? It could be an
That's a good
efficiency,
one. I think if I had a magic wand, it would just basically you could enter in your type of business and what you're doing, and it would just like it would scour the internet for all the incentives that come up for you, and there might be some cool tools that will just like go ahead and do the claim for you or apply for you or something like that. Some of that stuff exists a little bit, but it's still a little manual.
yeah,
Or some of them will it's just a data center, or it's just a database on like what's available. So yeah, you'll get a whole list, but then it's like, all right, well now I got to go to work and sift through all this stuff. I think that idea could be really streamlined to where it's almost like angenic AI kind of thing, where it's just like asking you a couple questions, confirming, great, I'm going to go after these things. Like, I'll let you know when I'm done. And it's like, kind of, here it is. That would be pretty cool.
but that kind of sounds like a software that you guys should come up with.
Yeah, yeah, it does sound like something that we should be playing with, no doubt. Yeah, I think there's a lot of room to play in that space so that folks can just leverage every incentive possible. I mean, once you learn about, the IRS doesn't have a marketing department.
Right.
You know,
Right.
same thing with like grants and stuff like that. You got to dig around for these things. Some of them are really competitive, but a lot of this stuff, like just billions, goes unclaimed every year. So it's like
Yeah.
that's a shame. That was like money set forth that just never got used.
I remember working with, we were talking before the call about ERC in the past. I remember talking to people about that program, and they would ask that question, like, what if this is out there, why don't we know about it? And that's exactly that. The IRS doesn't have a marketing department, so and
Yeah,
it's left up to
they
firms like you guys.
they leave it up to us to realize that wow, this is actually this could be really helpful. Like I guess we have to go tell people about it
Yeah.
and make a business.
Yeah, it's a funny thing.
Yeah.
Uh, the last question I asked the guests is a very open-ended question. It's what are you excited about in your job, in your business, and in your life? It can be anything.
I'm excited to grow something big here. I'm excited to assemble a really talented team, and also just be at the forefront of like what's next in the chapter for these types of incentives and how people are taking advantage of them. Yeah, I'm also just excited to. I used to be up in Boston, but now I'm outside of New York City, and so I'm excited to go in there a lot now. There's
Mhm.
a type of energy that's hard to replicate,
Yeah.
and while some people might not want that all the time, I think it's good in small doses.
Yeah.
Um, and so I'm excited to do that, and also just I have three young kids. It's fun to bring them in for little trips and stuff like that, and yeah, I think that's generally what excites me, and also I'm excited to reap some success here, so I can like get back into my music hobby. Maybe revive some of that stuff. I used to have a really nice production studio, and now there's like pieces of it all over the house. It'd be good to get back to my roots a little bit, and it's a really good almost therapeutic exercise, just like an escape from your everyday life, and you come away feeling refreshed, even though you just worked on something else.
Cool. That's like a whole different frequency from like the
Totally.
almost like natural world to music. What do you play instruments or
I do.
what do you do?
I play guitar and piano. And you're right. Like when you're in a different creative space and you're on a different wavelength, and it like kind of replenishes a part of your head, so that
Yeah.
if you have to come back to the business world, you're a little more like open-minded, or
Might see something a different way
yeah,
that you
absolutely,
didn't.
sure, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's actually another big excitement of mine. Is I can't wait to dive back into that stuff and show my kids how to do it too. They don't have to do it for a living, but it's I think it's a fun
Yeah.
exercise.
It's awesome. Yeah, I play guitar a little bit, so
Nice.
I also do that from time to time to kind of reset.
Yeah, it helps. I've got one right behind me, and if I'm, it's I don't know, call it my like Jerry Maguire bat or something like that. But I'll grab it in between meetings or something like that, and it's a good little reset. Even like
Yeah,
5 minutes, even if it's almost like going on a walk, but just a different style.
definitely. Yeah. All right, Brendan. Well, it's been great. Before we wrap up, is what's the best place for everyone to learn about you or Arcade Partners?
Sure. So you can go to arcade.partners. That's our website. You can also check me out on LinkedIn. That's just Brandon Carroll. Arcade Partners. I should come up in the search there. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. I post daily with different content on 179D, stuff that revolves around it, just general business ideas. Sometimes I post cool business quotes and kind of dissect them to see how they apply to kind of society, and maybe drop a little personal learning in there. You can also get at me at just bcarroll at arcade.partners. Carroll's with two R's and two L's.
Very cool. And we'll put all that below the video. Do you have anything else to share before we wrap up?
No, I appreciate you hosting me, Stephen. Great questions. Love talking about this stuff. And yeah, just thanks for your time, and thanks for having me on.
Yeah, it was great to have you. Thanks, Brendan.
Excellent.
Bye.